Financial crisis enters new phase. For stocks, worst single-day drop in 2 decades. Bailout plan rejected. Markets plunge, forcing new scramble to solve crisis.
You realize that was 2008, right? Yeah, you already figured that out? Yeah. Try to sneak one by you. But here's the thing. Bad stuff like that, it happens a lot. Too young to remember that? Fine. Me too. You got world wars. You have viruses. Swine flu, Spanish flu, H1N1, Great Recession of 2008, the bubble collapse of 2001. Every 5 or 6 years, sometimes more, sometimes less, economic uncertainty fills the sky. And yet we persist. Life goes on. But for many people, life is a paycheck to paycheck state. Forget your future, because you only live once. I'm just gonna make sure that I can make it to the next paycheck. And I'm gonna use credit card and revolving debt to get there. Eventually, it'll work itself out. Eventually, I'll make more money. Our lifestyles inflate right along with it. When we get that raise, we know that we can afford the payment on a new car. We can upgrade the furniture inside of our house. We can afford the payments. There's a name for this. It's called the hedonic treadmill or hedonic adaptation. It basically says we grow accustomed to new luxuries in our life. And we continually raise the bar up so that our spending always meets, or in some cases, exceeds our income. But what if you didn't do that? What if you didn't buy into that? What if you realized that there were tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people that realized that the ultimate luxury, the most precious, non-renewable resource was their time? That's a heavy thought right there. It takes some time to think about that, right? Because the counterpoint is, well, you only live once. You make money to spend money. That's what it's there for. When I realized that there was a group of people that were setting aside their money, that were creating space between their income and their expenses and taking that savings to buy their most precious non-renewable resource, their time, I knew that I wanted to be a part of that community. I wanted to be a part of the community of people that were winning with money. What were those practices? What were those tactics? What were they doing differently to allow them to reclaim decades of their life? If I were to tell you you could get to the point where working is optional and you could do it in your mid-30s, early 40s, or beyond, you'd probably think that I was trying to sell you on a get-rich-quick scheme. I'm not. Get-rich-quick it's rightly called a scheme. It usually ends up with your money in someone else's pocket. You're a little bit bitter, a little bit irritated, you're looking for the next thing because that thing didn't work. Financial independence is not a get-rich-quick scheme, but it is get-rich-quick-ish, because at its core, it's based on simple math. We've talked about the math in prior videos. Today, I want to share with you what it looked like practically for me. In 2009, I started pharmacy school. I wanted to become a pharmacist. My outlook was the path to wealth is to get a great paying job. Get a great paying job and get the degree at any cost. So I got into pharmacy school and I took out $168,000 in student loan debt to get that degree, to get that license. Now, taking out $168,000 in student loan debt is not a great path to build wealth. You have to unwind the student loan debt that you took out, and you have to pay that student loan debt back with after-tax dollars, right? You earn an income, the government takes their piece of it, they take taxes, you have what's left to pay it back. So I started to realize the implications of that, and while I was confident that I could pay it back, I wanted to make sure that once I paid it off, I was in a position to take that next step and actually save a significant portion of my income. So the first piece, pay off the student loan debt. All right, I got that. You know, I heard about Dave Ramsey. I was given the Total Money Makeover as a kid. It made sense to me. Debt is bad. And once I had that wake-up call, I knew, all right, I'm gonna pay off the student loan debt. But there really wasn't anything after that. I didn't know what came next. And suddenly, I would say this is probably 2012, 2013, I heard about this group of individuals in the financial independence community that had basically gotten to the point where they could retire, never work again. It was totally their choice in their early 30s. I'm gonna be turning 30 years old in the next couple of years, and I'm like, I'm just getting started. I've been in school for the last 8, 12 years. I'm 24 years old right now. I have $168,000 in student loan debt, and yay, great, I'm making a entry-level 6-figure salary, but it's gonna take me 4 years, 5 years, and beyond just to get back to broke. Didn't really feel like winning at the time. But as boring as that sounds, that's the first step. If you're watching this video, maybe Google served it up to you for whatever reason, you can't go back, right? You can't go back to when you were in school, or you can't go back to before school when you're doing your college planning and say, I'm not gonna go 6 figures in student loan debt. I'm gonna look at the problem a little bit differently. It's too late for that. But now you are where you are. The first step's kind of simple. If we have student loan debt, we got to figure out how to pay it off and pay it off aggressively. So this is what I did. For about 3 to 4 years, my life cost around $30,000 to $40,000 a year. My wife and I took every dollar we could for 3 to 4 years and we shoveled it at student loans. That was not fun. I remember we were keeping it pretty lean. We did not purchase a new car. We purchased a much smaller house than we could quote unquote afford. And that allowed us though to carve out like 50, 60% of our income and shovel it back towards those student loans. And my job, to be honest with you, pharmacy, that's a tough gig. That is a tough job. And I remember you're working nights, you're working weekends, you're standing up, you're doing 10 or 12 hour shifts. My store was robbed 2 times while I was working there. The power went out multiple times and we're responsible for making sure that the medication that's there stays safe, stays at the right temperature. And so I remember having to go in at like 12 o'clock at night after a long week because the power's out at this location and we're taking all these temperature controlled medications and going across town to another store where we could store them until the power came back on. Most of the job was dealing with insurance education problems, meaning the insurance wouldn't pay for a medication for one reason or another. Very little of the actual job was dealing with patient interaction. So it kind of felt like you were just working on an assembly line and waiting for something to break. This was my experience working at a corporate retail pharmacy. I think it's mirrored by the experiences of many of my colleagues. It wasn't fun though. And I was starting to feel the burnout. Now, typically, once you go all in on a profession like this, the path is just work forever. You spend all this time getting this degree. Now, the great news is you have this good income. You can afford the finer things in life, right? Like when you're stressed out, when you're overworked, when life's tough, you're like, get the car, you deserve it. Go on the vacation, you deserve it. Buy a little bit more house, you deserve it. This is a way of dealing with the stress that comes with the job. Hedonic adaptation and inflating your lifestyle is like an easy way. It's a salve, it's a cream that you can put on to heal all the burnout that comes from a job that's destroying you slowly. But what I noticed is when I looked at individuals that had been in the career that I was in, that had been working for 10, 20, 30 years in this profession, and especially those that you knew didn't have another choice. They had not been saving their money. They were still on this paycheck to paycheck treadmill. They looked miserable. They were so angry, so bitter. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be here 20 years from now, 30 years from now. What do I have to do to not do that? So finally, I get back to broke. It sounds like a bad thing, but hear me on it's actually kind of cool. For the last 8 or so years, going through undergrad, then going through pharmacy school, I've been taking out student loan debt to get this degree. And when I graduated, now I have my license, I can practice as a pharmacist, and I'm earning just over $100,000 a year. I finally have the ability to pay it back, but I'm in a hole, right? I got to dig my way out. And it takes a while to get that to zero. Now, one thing that helped is I did take advantage of my employer match. So even when I didn't have the ability to max out my 401k because I was sending every extra dollar I could to student loans, I was taking advantage of the employer match. And over 4 or 5 years, that started to become something significant. I remember when my net worth hit zero. And then as I continued to pay off my student loans and got them to zero, and then started contributing to my 401k, it started racing upwards. And here's what happened. At the beginning of 2017, I started a side hustle called ChooseFI. It's a personal finance podcast and website that talks about these types of conversations. It's meant as a way to crowdsource the best practices of. I'm someone that's on the path to financial independence. I know there are people out there from all walks of life who have done this. What can I learn from them? And so I partnered with my friend Brad Barrett to bring this idea to a podcast, and it kind of blew up. Now, it was a side hustle, and on day zero, it earned zero income. And I didn't even know exactly how we were going to be able to monetize it. But when I started, monetization wasn't at the forefront. It wasn't the main focus. It was a way for me to hold myself accountable, get access to great minds, people that could help me on the journey to learn from them. But as I started to learn about personal finance, I also learned about entrepreneurship. I learned about building a business and building a business around helping people spend less money, which is kind of an interesting thing. But as it did start to make money and it started to grow in popularity and it started to become a real thing, there was a point in time that I remember when it made the first 39 cents. I think it was like 39 cents off an affiliate Amazon book deal where we had a recommended book offering and someone clicked on our link to purchase the book. I made 39 cents. Now I had worked hundreds, if not thousands of hours for that, but I made the 39 cents while I was sleeping at night, which was incredible. Not passive, but I did separate my time from my money, which was kind of cool. And certainly you went through like these different inflection points. I remember the point in time at which my side hustle produced enough income to cover my core expenses. Now, this is an important distinction. It was not replacing my income, but because I had bootstrapped my lifestyle, because I had gotten my life just didn't cost that much, I was able to cover my core expenses with the income that was coming from the business. That was huge. And it continued to grow from there. The business continued to grow. As I was working in pharmacy, I continued to set money aside, investing in my 401k, investing in taxable accounts, doing what I could to continue building wealth using the stock market as the vehicle. And something interesting happened. I had several years of expenses saved up. I had a business that was covering, my core expenses and appeared to be continuing to grow. I was doing all of this as a side hustle while working at a corporate pharmacy. And three things all lined up at the exact same time. Number one, we were going to go to our first conference inside of our niche. So we're a personal finance podcast and brand. FinCon is probably the premier personal finance conference in the country for independent media producers. We were going to go this year and do some networking. Number two, a documentary called Playing with Fire wanted to include us in its filming as it was creating a documentary to cover the financial independence community. That sounded a little bit intimidating. I had never been in a documentary or never done anything on YouTube up to that point. And certainly I was trying to figure out what sort of involvement there would be, how much time that would actually take. And then number three, and I would say maybe even the most importantly, we were due to go visit my wife's family. She's from Zimbabwe. That's about a 17 to 20 hour flight to get there. It's not something you can just fly there, take 1 or 2 days and then come back. I mean, it takes a couple days just to get over the jet lag. And so for all of this together, all this was landing at the same time, I realized that I needed about 3 weeks. Now, if you live and work in corporate America, 3 weeks, altogether, that ain't gonna happen. That's just not how it works, right? As someone that's relatively early on in their career, 20 days is kind of the max, that's the cap. And you can't take all 20 of those together. It just doesn't work that way. It's also done by seniority. So I looked through the company's policies and I saw that they had something called a conditional leave of absence. Employers could give me approval to take an unpaid leave of absence. I went to my boss and I said, here's what I got going on. Is there any way that I could take this absence and, I've got everything covered in the pharmacy. It's working out pretty well. I'll be back in 3 weeks, but I just need to take some time off. Well, my boss listened to what I had to say and said basically right back to me, I don't think it's in the company's best interest for us to let you do that. And that's devastating, right? For that answer to exist, at the same time as everything I just set out, I would have to say no to something. I'd have to say no to my wife, to this documentary, to my business. There's something I was gonna have to give. But because of the principles that we talked on this show, right? I bootstrapped my life. Our life didn't cost that much. I had paid off all my debt. I had de-risked my life. I had started a small side hustle, which was producing a pretty decent amount of income. And I had several years of investments, several years of savings. Like, I'm just running this mental calculus. I just said back to him, I don't think it's in my best interest to stay. And you get to make that choice when you're not paycheck to paycheck, when you're not next to the financial cliff, when you have savings. You take the power, which is usually on the employer side of the equation, and pull it to your side of the court. You get to make choices. They may not be necessarily in your employer's best interests, but they're sure as hell in yours. And it gives you options, it gives you freedom, it gives you flexibility. And I achieved that freedom, that flexibility long before reaching financial independence. You get that flexibility, that power, just because you make the choice to pursue it. So now here it is 2 years later. It was the best choice that I ever made. I wouldn't change anything. And when I look at it now with the benefit of hindsight and I see the pattern of others who have done this, you realize that it is replicable. It doesn't look exactly the same, but when you have no debt, when you pay off your debt, that's step one, pay off your debt. When you have savings, you de-risk your life. And it allows you to take what for somebody else would seem like risk and turn that into opportunity. I feel so blessed. I have been able to design my life, design my day by day based on who and what I value. Every morning I get to wake up and I get to go have breakfast with my kids. We take a walk every single day with my family. My son comes up and interrupts me while I'm podcasting from home. I get to work out exactly when I want to work out and prioritize that based on my ever-evolving schedule. I get to carve out those creative moments with my wife and take vacations to go visit her family when we want to, right? Everything can get staged and set behind our other ongoing priorities. And when you realize that time is your most precious, non-renewable resource, it changes the game and the way you play. So sure, you can keep working hard so you can buy more stuff and fill up the basement, the garage, the attic, the spare bedroom, the storage units, Marie Kondo your closet so you'll have room for more stuff next year. Or you can buy your freedom. Life is a series of choices. I recommend you choose FI. To get started on your own path to financial independence, go to choosefi.com/start. What do you say? You ready to get started?